We will discuss now the most modern methods and the 21st century methods of teaching physical science. First, we focus onto the method called project method. The project is defined in Oxford's Advanced Learner's Dictionary as a plan of action. It usually involves a task or problem calling for constructive thoughts or action, or both on the part of the student. The term project has been defined in different ways by different educationists. May I give some of the definitions that are provided by the different educationists? According to the Ballard, a project is a bit of real life that has been imparted into school. In the opinion of W.H. Kilpatrick, a project is a wholehearted, purposeful activity proceeding in a social environment. According to J.A. Stevenson, the definition is a project is a problematic act carried to completion in its natural setting. The project method offers an approach to education which is consistent with the psychological principles of learning by doing and learning by living. The emphasis of science teaching should be one of inquiry and investigation. The project method is an ideal way of promoting creativity and the spirit of inquiry in the students. Now we come on to the different steps involved in the project method. The method involves the steps of scientific method. Number 1, providing a problem. Number 2, purposing. Number 3, planning. Number 4, executing. Number 5, evaluating. And number 6, recording. Let's discuss each and every such steps in the project method. First, come on to the providing a problem. The teacher should provide such situations to the students that may raise some suitable questions to which the students may be drawn. The teacher could provide these problems through libraries, laboratories, other science teachers, journals, field trips, etc. Second, purposing. In this important step, the nature and goal of project is clearly determined and thus defines clearly the limits and scope of the project. Obviously, the interest, aptitude, and ability of students have to be kept in mind. A project which is very ambitious may prove to be a flop and a total waste of teacher and students' time. The points to be taken in consideration are the students' interest, degree of complexity of the project, time allotted to furnish the project, and availability of material resources. Third point, the planning. Planning involves looking around for the most appropriate and feasible set of activities to be executed. The teacher should be actively involved in this stage in order to guide the students to choose the most practical plan of action. Likely, The student should themselves do the planning with the teacher as a guide. Discussion may be held among the students, and after a discussion, the best of plans is agreed on. The planning is recorded in their projects book. Next, executing. The teacher assigns work to the various group members according to their interest and abilities. Each member of the group should be actively involved in the execution of the project. In this step, the work assigned by the teacher to each group is further subdivided by the students among themselves, thus distributing the various activities and duties. The students collect information, visit various places, keep accounts, and perform a variety of activities. Next, evaluating. The students, along with the teacher, review the project from time to time. This is to ensure that the objectives of the project have been met. This step is very important, as without frequent evaluation, the project can just move out of focus. Next, come on to the recording. The students keep a complete record of work, including the choice of the project, the planning methodology, the discussions held, and the duties assigned. Also, references and books consulted and readings taken, difficulties faced, and guidance sought, and so on. Everything should be recorded in the record book. If the project is being done as a classroom assignment, the teacher can specify the manner in which the project report to be organized. The following forms that I am going to tell you must be adopted in forming the project report. So what should be there in the project report? Number 1, title. A brief title should do if accuracy requires more than a few keywords, and a subtitle may be considered. Second, abstract. This is a brief summary of the entire project, highlighting the objectives, methods used, and conclusion arrived at. Then, introduction. A description of the topic being studied, along with relevant background information, is given here. A clear statement of the purpose, scope, and the method of study should be included. Fourth, the materials and methods. A description of the equipment or chemical methods, procedures used, and experiment performed is given. Fifth, observation. The recorded observations and data is noted under this section. Then come results. The findings from the study are given in details in this section. Students can be taught to interpret their findings, comparing their results with other workers in the same field. Next, appendix. Students can insert any supplementary information in this section. Last come bibliography. A list of references is given to help other students follow up if they so wish. So in project report, the main components that are to be adopted. What are there? Title, then abstract, introduction, after that materials and methods, observations, results, appendix, and bibliography. So these should be there in the project report that the student has to prepare after the completion of the teaching through the project method. Now we come on to the types of projects. What are the different types of projects that can be incorporated or involved in the project method of teaching? Educationalist Smith has categorized physical science project units into certain types. What are those types? Number one, model building, like making volcanoes, making different chemical structures, etc. Two, hobby projects, that is assembling a radio, like that. Number three, laboratory demonstrations directly from the textbook or laboratory manual, like electrolysis, electroplating, distillation. Number four, or fourth type, there is report and poster projects from literature research. Example, car, steam engine, pesticides. Number five, investigative projects that involve the students in critical thinking and science processes like measuring, inferring, etc. So these are the different types of project that Smith has suggested. Kilpatrick, another famous educationalist, has classified projects on the basis of tasks involved. What are those classifications or type? So according to Kilpatrick, the types are practical. Number one, practical tasks. In this type of project, the producer's type emphasis is directed towards the actual construction of material object or article. Number two, clarity. The judge will have to determine how effectively the students can verbally present the investigation related to the project. Can the student answer questions about their project works? Can they clearly communicate the nature of the project? Several judges are generally selected to individually evaluate the project, and feedback is given, and students are told how to improve the investigation. Okay, so now come on to the criteria of a good project. That we have to keep in mind what are the basic focal points or criteria that are necessary to be there when we are designing a project or we are planning for a project method of teaching. So what are those criteria? Number one, a project should be purposeful and complete in itself. It should be useful and practically applicable to the daily life of students with clear, well-defined objectives. Number two, the learning experiences gained during the progress of the project should be useful. A good plan of action will facilitate fruitful learning activities for each member of the group. Number three, the project should be aimed at problem solving. The teacher should be vigilant during the choice of the problem, as it should be within the scope and ability level of the students. Number four, The project should be feasible. The consideration here are availability of material resources, laboratory facilities, access to the libraries, time limit, and help from science teachers if needed. Number 5. The level of complexity of the project is of prime importance for its success or failure. Too simple a project does not prove much of a challenge to students, whereas too complex a project will put students off. Number 6. The undertaking is complete in itself. Number 7. The learning activity is lifelike, purposeful, and natural. Number 8. The learners plan and direct their own activity. Now we come exactly what are the role of teacher in invoking the projects or in utilizing the project method in the form of teaching physical science. Active involvement of teacher in every stage of the project is inevitable, or rather indispensable. The teacher should assume the following role in accomplishment of project goals. What should assume the teacher? Number 1, help students select projects according to their ability, interest, and age level. Number 2, at planning stage, help allot activities according to the nature of the student. Number 3, be accessible to the students and be willing to help wherever necessary. Number 4, help in creating democratic and friendly atmosphere in the classroom, promoting cooperation and harmony. Number 5, be alert enough to check whether the project is running along right lines. Number 6, help the students in developing a scientific attitude and give training in scientific method. Number 7, suggest books for references and provide them with necessary information. Now let's discuss the advantages of the project method. Number 1, the method is based on sound psychological principles like law of readiness, law of exercise, and law of effect. Number 2, the project method promotes habits of critical thinking and urges the students to adopt the scientific method of working. Number 3, students can work at their own pace, learning to plan and execute their project within the given time frame. Number 4, it promotes social interaction and cooperation among the students. Number 5, the students learn a lot of skills through the project method: observation, reference, interpretation, and so on. Number 6, it widens the mental horizon of the students. Number 7, learning is related to reality and the world around the students. So these are the advantages that can be procured through the project method of teaching. But there are certain limitations also in this method, because for each and every approach and method of teaching, there may have certain limitations which can be overcome by using the different other methods. In the same way, in project method also, we have the lot of advantages that you have discussed, but still there are certain limitations in the project method. What are those limitations? Number one, the project method is uneconomical in terms of time. Fitting project work into the normal timetable requires a lot of juggling. Number two, the teacher will have to be exceptionally gifted, knowledgeable, as well as alert and helpful if he or she is introducing the project methods in the classroom at the time of teaching. Number three, the syllabus cannot be completed on time by this method because this method is a time consuming. It may so happen that a particular targeted topic may not be completed by a single class. Whenever the project method is used, it can be completed using 2 or 3 classes. So automatically the total syllabus becomes difficult to complete within the targeted time or due time. This has to be kept in mind. Number 4, textbooks and instructional materials written on these lines are not easily available because normal textbooks, they have a theoretical perspective, definition, descriptions of content matter, but the scope of project in the form of experimentation that are not planned or that layout is not given in the textbook. So supporting textbook and instructional materials are rarely available if the project method is used in the method of teaching by the teacher. So these are the limitations of the project method. So we have discussed one of the most modern and 21st century method of teaching physical science, that is a project method. Discuss the definition, the type, the methods that are used, the steps that are followed in the project method, advantages, and the limitations. Now we come on to the another modern method of teaching, or you can say the 21st century method of teaching physical science, that is laboratory method. Science laboratory work is a unique way of instruction that is an integral part of science teaching. It helps students understand complex, abstract ideas and gives students an opportunity to participate in and have an appreciation for the methods of science. Laboratory work involves students in hands-on activities that help them participate in scientific investigation and to verify for themselves scientific concepts, principles, and laws. Most laboratory approaches can be classified into one of the following discussions. Number 1, verification and deduction. Number 2, induction. Number 3, science process oriented. Number 4, technical skills oriented. Number 5, exploratory. Let's discuss each of these 5 approaches. So number 1 approach, that is verification and deduction. Here the verification laboratory is the most common approach used in India. The purpose of this approach is to illustrate concepts, principles, and laws. Second, induction. The inductive laboratory provides students with the opportunity to form concepts, principles, and laws through first-hand experiences. This approach, followed in projects, allows students to form concepts for themselves and to explore ideas and pursue them. Number 3, all laboratory work stresses the science process skills of observing, classifying, measuring, inferring, predicting, interpreting data, and experimenting. Number 4 is the technical skills oriented. Technical skills oriented laboratory approach would require students to acquire manipulative skills that involve the development of hand-eye coordination, like focusing a telescope, measuring angles, pipetting, etc. Science teachers should master the basic laboratory techniques and manipulative skills associated with their particular subjects. Number 5 is the exploratory. Exploratory laboratory activities allow students to explore an idea, concept, or principles without structured procedures. Students are given freedom to explore, and specific learning outcomes are left to the students to determine and achieve. So now I come on to the planning and organizing laboratory work. Laboratory activities must be well organized and carefully planned. The science teacher should give pre-laboratory instructions which prepares the students for the laboratory exercises and orients them to the objectives to be attained and the procedures to be adopted. Necessary directions should be given for actual laboratory work, highlighting the precautions to be taken. These instructions could be oral or written either on the blackboard or on instruction cards. Post-laboratory discussion help the students to analyze their findings and draw inferences. In this laboratory method, since students are having the active role in the method of teaching, the students can work either in groups or individually depending on the facilities available. Now, we are coming to the advantages of the laboratory method. What are the advantages that we are getting if the laboratory method of teaching is used in case of physical science? Number 1, this method of teaching is pupil-oriented, or rather student-centered. Number 2, the student gets a chance of learning by doing. Number 3, student develops the science process skills. Number 4, it encourages habits of neatness and discipline. Number 5, the students develop self-confidence and a sense of achievement. Major consideration must be given to the relevance of laboratory work, the degree of structure involved in the activities, and the methods by which students will record and report data. class management is a critical factor for successful laboratory activities. Laboratory management may pose some problems to the new science teacher. He or she will have to pay special attention to seating, grouping, discipline, safety, regulations, and monitoring student activities. Individual difference must be catered at the time of working. Students develop their research skills, including setting up and fitting apparatus, conducting experiments, having the habits of neatness, and patiently attending to the details that are required. So these are the advantages that we may get as laboratory method is an effective method for the physical science teaching. But and still, there are certain disadvantages, or rather it can be said certain limitations of this method also. What are those disadvantages or limitation? Number one, this method is feasible only with a gifted teacher and a small class. Both these basic requisites are difficult to attain practically. Number two, suitable textbooks are not available on these aspects. Number three, it is very uneconomical in terms of time. The pressurized teacher will be able to finish a syllabus in the given time. So if he or she is using the laboratory method, it takes time, it is time consuming. So it becomes difficult for the teacher to complete the syllabus in the desired time or in a predefined targeted time. Number four, the stress is more on skills in this laboratory method than on knowledge. Hence, the heuristic method could lead to an imbalance in learning, as knowledge is of secondary consideration here and skill is the first consideration. Number five, as a lot of experimentation is done, it implies that suitable infrastructure is needed to follow this method. Hence, it can prove costly. Number six, the heuristic method, such type of laboratory method, this also can be considered as one of the heuristic method. The heuristic method demands too much of our students. Not all students can cope up with this kind of learning. Number seven, this method cannot be used for all classes and also for all topics in physical science. Number eight, practical problems like timetabling can creep in, making this method not quite suitable for the school. So these are the limitations or disadvantages of laboratory method, but still, this is the most effective and suitable method for physical science teaching. No doubt about it that this is the most effective and suitable method for physical science teaching. But the teacher has to keep in mind, by force, the laboratory method cannot be used for any topic of the physical science in secondary level. So it can be used for a suitable topic where there is a scope of experimentation. So that should be kept in mind. Now we come on to the exactly what are the roles of teacher in laboratory method teaching. The teacher is the hub around which the success or failure of a method rests. For the heuristic method or the laboratory method to be fruitful, the teacher should play the following role whenever he or she is trying to invoke the laboratory method in the classroom session. Number one, the science teacher should help the student search for a suitable problem. Here, the teacher should keep in mind the age, ability, and level of the student along with the facilities available. Number two, the teacher should act as a guide and instructor to the students, providing them with sufficient background information and help to get student going. Number three, detailed instruction sheets should be given to the student. Number four, the teacher should keep in developing values and attitudes consistent with science by allowing freedom of thought and action. Number five, arrangement for supplementing the student's knowledge should be made by the teacher, be it library facilities or field trip. Number six, a gifted teacher should help students draw inferences from their experiments and observations. He or she should also assist in relating these inferences to the body of knowledge they already have. So finally, we have discussed the laboratory method. What is the method? Type of the laboratory method, processes, exactly the advantages of using the laboratory method in the classroom, disadvantages or limitations, and the role of teacher in pertaining the laboratory method in the classroom for teaching physical science.